Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and today I want to talk about a topic I've been getting many questions about. People are asking me, how I got saved, or they're saying, well, you're Jewish, how can you be a Christian, and all these other things they really don't understand. So I just wanted to talk about my testimonial and how it happened for me, and it's just the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. Well, what happened to me is both my parents are Jewish, but we weren't raised in a traditional Jewish home. They didn't do anything with the Jewish culture or religion or anything. They left it up to me to decide what I wanted to do and think in terms of God or religion and so on. And that was good and bad. The reason why it was good was because later on in life, when I accepted Yeshua as my Messiah, I didn't have a Jewish mother saying, "What are you doing?" But it was bad because I didn't learn Hebrew and about all the Torah and all the other Jewish festivals and feast days and so on, which I'm learning now. But everything was perfect the way it happened. And for me, basically, since my parents let me decide what I wanted to do, I decided to be an atheist. I did not believe in a higher power at all. I strictly believed in science. I believe when I'm here, I'm here. When I'm not, I'm not. And I can relate to a lot of people out there today who think that, because I once thought that way. Well, I certainly don't believe that way anymore. What happened to me was when I was 19 years old, I got diagnosed with a deathly illness called inflammatory bowel disease, also known as ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. It's inflammation of the colon. Now, my doctors told me that there was no medical cure, and I was at a high risk for colon cancer. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't have a higher power to pray to. But at that point, I wasn't looking for that. At that point, I just wanted to get better. Well, certain circumstances led me to change my diet and eat a raw food diet, a diet made of fruits and vegetables, and I got healed of the so-called incurable illness. Today, many years later, it's still incurable according to the medical community, but I was healed. And I went on this raw food diet, and I was so blessed. And after that happened, I started to believe in a higher power. I started to believe there was something else out there. But I didn't know what that was. So I went on this path or this search, and I dabbled in most of the major popular religions today, and I looked at many of them, and I was what we would call today a New Age believer. I believed in a higher power, but I wasn't sure what it was, but I believed in something. So I was on that search for a while, but then one day after one of my health lectures, somebody came up to me and they said, "Paul, do you know that there's a tremendous amount of information about health in the Bible?" Now, up to that point in my life, I had never read a Bible and never had any desire to do so. All I knew was Genesis 1:29, which says the food for man is fruits and vegetables, because I was a vegetarian. And you see, vegetarians will use things to back up their claims when it's helpful to what they're saying. Otherwise, they'll knock it, and that's what many people do with the Bible. And that's also what many people do with doctors. They'll use science and doctors when it's helpful for what they're saying, but when it's not helpful, they'll knock the doctors and say they don't know what they're talking about. Well, I was in that situation, so the only verse I knew in the Bible was Genesis 1:29. Besides that, I could have cared less about the Bible. Well, this person kept on me, kept saying it talks a lot about health, and I had never heard that before. So I wanted to see if what he was saying was true. So I got a Bible, and I looked at the back, health, and I skimmed around the Bible, and I actually looked at many of the health scriptures that were in the Bible, and I was like, wow, that's very interesting. It talks a lot about fruits and vegetables. It talks about, living a certain way, a temperate life, and so it did talk a lot about health. But I still wasn't willing or interested in reading the Bible for any other reason until I was in Toronto a couple of weeks after that situation. I was on a payphone, and on top of the payphone was a little booklet that said, "The Jewish people, the chosen people." Well, I didn't think much about it until the next day. I was on a different payphone in a different part of Toronto, Canada, and there was another booklet on the top of that payphone that said, "The Jewish people, the chosen people, what are you waiting for?" So now I got interested. And I had a friend in New York City who was a Christian for many, many years. So I called him up from that payphone, and I said, "I'm interested in reading a Bible. What Bible would you recommend?" And he said, "Paul, I'm very glad to hear you say that. I've been praying for you. And what I recommend is you get something called the New Life Application Study Bible. Well, I didn't know what that was. I wrote it down, and I didn't think much of it until a week later. I was in Savannah, Georgia, and I got down to Savannah, Georgia. I was supposed to speak at a Barnes & Noble bookstore, and they had made a mistake and put the wrong date on the calendar, so nobody showed up to my talk. So the lady in the store felt very bad, so she said, you could have any book you want in the store. So I walked over to the Bibles, and there was the New Life Application Study Bible right there. So I got that, but I still hadn't read it until I had a talk in Jacksonville a couple of days later. And as I was driving to Jacksonville, the only station on my radio was a Christian radio station. So I found that quite interesting. And when I got to Jacksonville, I was supposed to speak at a church. Well, I told the lady at the church who I was staying with, her family, I said, you know, I have this Bible in my back seat. Where do I start reading it? Because I just don't know. And she told me, she suggested I start reading with the book of John or the Gospel of John. I had no idea what that meant. I mean, it said John here, here, and here. I said, what does that mean? And she showed me where the Gospel of John was, and I started reading that. I didn't even get halfway through the book, and I accepted Yeshua as my Messiah. But I was a little confused as I did a little bit more research, because I said, well, wait a second. I'm Jewish. How could I be a Christian? But then I did a little bit more research, and I saw that Yeshua was Jewish. And I said, this is going to be easy. I'm just going to follow what he said to do. So I started doing that, and I started to just feel amazing. I mean, it was just the most amazing experience of my life. But then I got excited to go to my first church. And I went to the church, and the pastor was preaching a message that went completely against the words of Yeshua, what he was saying in the scriptures. So then I said, maybe this is the wrong church. So I went to another church. And the pastor was preaching a message completely against the words that Yeshua was saying in the scriptures. So I said, maybe I got a bad copy of the scriptures. So I got a couple of different translations and read those. And the same thing. The churches were preaching a different message than what Yeshua was saying in the scriptures. So I called my friend up in New York City who had been a Christian for many, many years. And I said to him, I'm running into this situation because the church is saying this and the scripture is saying this. And he said, well, I don't know where you're learning this stuff from these scriptures you're talking about, but the church is right, and these scriptures you're reading are incorrect. Where are you learning this information? He kept asking me. And I said, right from this translation of the scriptures that you recommended for me. That's where I'm learning it. You see, the problem is today, many Christians out there don't even read their scriptures, and if they do, they've already been deceived or brainwashed into thinking something different about what's actually being said. And anyway, it's really weird because when I was a New Ager, or even, it's really weird because when I was a New Ager, I got along great with this man who's been a Christian for a very long time, many, many years. But here I am now, a believer myself, and he got really upset that I was saying certain things that he didn't believe about Yeshua and about the scriptures. And this happened with many Christians. I was saying Yeshua said to keep the Torah. I was saying Yeshua said to do this, and all the other disciples did this. And many Christians didn't even know what I was talking about. And that's because they don't know their scriptures, and the message that's being taught in the church is not a biblical message. They're celebrating holidays that aren't even in the scriptures while they're ignoring the holy days that are. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I had to look elsewhere, and I continued on my path. And that's when I found out a Messianic congregation. I went to the Messianic congregation and the Messianic Jewish congregation, and I kind of started to understand everything and see everything. So now when I tell people I'm Jewish but I believe in Jesus, they say, oh, you're a Jew for Jesus. Absolutely not. A Jew for Jesus are Jewish people that are following the ways of the church. But a Messianic Jew is a Jewish person that's following the words of Yeshua, our Messiah, and doing exactly what he said to do. As Jewish people, we're living the life that Yeshua told us to live. And I've discussed in other videos about the issue Yeshua had with the Pharisees and sages, that if Yeshua, back then they were saying he wasn't scriptural enough. Today, if he was around, the church would be saying he's too legalistic. So we run into all these different situations and these issues, and I'm just so excited because I've been meeting great people. I've been studying and learning the scriptures, and my ministry that I created, Torah Life Ministry, was first to help teach the Christians and the believers about health, and it was also to teach the New Agers about Yeshua. But now it's transformed into teaching the Christians about Yeshua because they just don't know who he is. I mean, many of you watching this probably never even heard, who is Yeshua? Well, many people today call him Jesus, but that's not his name. His name's Yeshua. And so that's what we do, and that's what my ministry is today. And I'm really excited to be able to post these videos. I teach mostly about health according to the scriptures, but I also teach that we're supposed to be set apart people if we're believers, and when we become a believer, something is supposed to happen. We're supposed to hate the life we once lived and now love a new life. So now I teach a lot about the Jewish roots of Yeshua. I teach about the Torah. I teach about the message of Scripture that our Creator wants us to live. And I am not claiming that we're saved by works, but what I am saying is if we're saved, we should have a passion to do those works. You know, we have to understand some of the most misunderstood words in Scripture. One of them is grace. Grace is not an excuse to keep living in sin. Grace is what's supposed to take away our sinful nature. And then we look at the word Torah. You know, many people think the word Torah means law. It doesn't mean law. The word Torah means guidelines and instructions, and we're all accountable to follow the guidelines and instructions of our Creator Yahweh if we want to be as healthy and joyful as we can be. So we have a commission. We have, a job to do. And Yeshua said, go and make disciples. And the best way we can do that is by following his guideline and instructions and living the words he told us to live. And I am so thrilled to be able to understand and do that and not be deceived and misled by the church. I understand how atheists think because I was one. I understand how New Agers think because that's the path I was on for a while. And I also understand about the way Christians think because I've seen exactly the brainwashing and misleading that they're led to, celebrating their pagan holidays and ignoring the holy days of our Creator that he ordained us and told us we need to keep throughout all our generations. So everybody, that's how I got saved. That's how I created Torah Life Ministries. If you are interested in learning more about the Hebrew roots of our Creator and Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, I'm happy to talk about this in all my videos. I teach about health according to the scriptures and all of these. If you have any questions or comments, by all means post them below the videos and I'll be happy to answer them and discuss them and understand iron sharpens iron. If you really want to learn and grow, watch my videos here on Torah Life Ministries and pass them along to others that want that as well. Until then, everybody, have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's way.